Now, on this daily tech podcast, I love exploring real-world examples of how technology is transforming our world. And one of the things I don't like doing is hyping up projects based on future promises. Sure, the future looks cool, but I'm fascinated by what we can do right here, right now. Oh man, do you know how hard it was for me not to burst out in a Fatboy Slim right here, right now there? Luckily, I think I reined myself in just in time. Seriously though, one of my favourite guests on this show is Taryn Southern. And she's been on the show twice before and is constantly leveraging emerging technologies in a way that I genuinely find inspirational. She didn't miss a beat after becoming the first artist to compose an album entirely with artificial intelligence. And that album was called I Am AI. But she's now turning her focus to film, specifically co-directing a documentary on real-life cyborgs. It is an incredibly cool project, and it will certainly make you think about technology and where we're heading. And I think what I love most about it is it's not going to spoon-feed you an opinion or a particular narrative and you go home with that, like many of those Netflix documentaries that we've all seen. But the aim is for you to walk away with more questions than answers and to actually think about everything that you've seen and where we're heading. But enough from me. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way back to Los Angeles so we can speak with Taryn Southern, AI artist, storyteller, and now documentary filmmaker, who's going to talk all about her new film, I Am Human. So in 825 interviews, I think you're only the third person to make it on here 3 times. So welcome back to the show, Taryn.
I feel honored.
But if for some reason people have missed our previous conversations, I find that hard to believe. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Taryn Southern, and I'm a storyteller and very passionate about the intersection of science, technology, and entertainment. So I work in a variety of mediums: digital, film, music, and most recently produced an album using artificial intelligence, and my film I Am Human, which explores the future of brain-computer interfaces, is premiering at the Tribeca Film Festival in just a couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Now, as you know by now, I'm a huge fan of your work, which includes creating an album which composed entirely of artificial intelligence. You've created music videos using AR, VR and 360 video, and also collaborated with the global community to create song lyrics and share royalties using Ethereum smart contracts. I mean, during that time, enhancing that creative process with emerging technologies, I've got to ask, what have you learned from it all?
Oh my goodness, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot of different lessons from these various projects. They're all unique in their own way. I think the overarching lesson that I've taken away from working with advanced technology or frontier technology is there's a wild, wild west out there where there are no rules, and there's a lot of experimentation and a lot of really exciting possibility. And I think as a storyteller, what gets me really excited is being able to take a deep dive into these subjects and try to find a different narrative than what exists in popular media, which typically sort of finds itself in a more dystopic or negative view of what the future might look like with some of these technologies. And I think that the reality is probably a bit more balanced. And so I have a lot of fun kind of experimenting with that and figuring out what those narratives are.
And like you hinted a few moments ago, you are now turning your focus to film, specifically co-directing a documentary on real-life cyborgs. But before we talk about that in a little more detail, the first thing that I noticed that you've achieved yet another first. I think you and your co-director, Elena, are now the first females to co-direct and produce a sci-fi documentary. So can you tell me more about the story behind that partnership and finding out that you were setting a benchmark at the same time?
Well, Elena and I met a couple of years ago. I had wanted to put together this documentary on the future of the brain, and she has an incredible amount of documentary experience as a producer on a number of projects, and I really come from the digital world and post-production heavy world, and so we really made a great partnership in figuring out how to tell this story in a different way than perhaps what we'd seen in other forms of media. We really, really wanted to tell an emotionally compelling story and put a face to the future, so to speak. and really follow these three humans who are on a journey trying to make a decision about whether or not to have these implantable brain interfaces. And I think a lot of the questions that we tried to pose in the film are ones that many people in our generation will be faced with over the course of their lifetime, especially as we learn more about the brain and start to integrate this technology within society at a much bigger level.
So about the film then, which, as you said, is called I Am Human, and it explores how implantable brain interfaces are merging man and machine. So can you just set the scene and offer listeners an overview of exactly what they can expect from the documentary?
Well, there are a number of things. We set out to answer a few different questions. One was, who are the faces of the people who are actually receiving this implantable brain technology? A lot of people don't realize this, but there are several 100,000 people in the world who currently have implantable interfaces in their brain. And that's a pretty large number. So I think that alone is shocking to people. So we wanted to chronicle who are these individuals and what is part of their decision-making process in receiving this technology. And then in taking sort of a very close look at one's individual choice and journey in receiving this technology or having this technology implanted in their brain, we also widen out the scope and really explore the implications, the larger societal implications of what this technology will mean as it continues to evolve and change and finds itself in very different hands in terms of innovation. And so I think, our big goal here is that people really walk out of the theater with more questions than answers, but hopefully have a very different and mixed and balanced view of what this technology could mean for themselves personally as well as society.
So who do you speak to in the film? And is there anyone that you were particularly excited about getting involved with the project too?
Yeah, so we chronicled 3 human stories, as well as the scientists and the entrepreneurs who are on the front lines of this research for each of their individual stories. So you'll meet those characters in the film. One is a tetraplegic, so he has no ability to move his arms and legs. We have a woman with Parkinson's and a blind man. And then alongside them, of course, all of the scientists, doctors, and research centers who are involved in this cutting-edge research that's being done. So a lot of really exciting institutions and scientists that we got to work with and meet, like the Wyss Center in Switzerland. We worked with Toronto Western Hospital, which is on the forefront of a lot of neurosurgery. We worked with University of Washington, who's doing some really cool cutting-edge research studies on brain-to-brain communication. We worked with the Cleveland FES Center, which is doing a lot of interesting research on brain interfaces for the restoration of movement and touch. So there were a number of people that I was incredibly excited to be collaborating with. I mean, these scientists are at the top of their field. They're doing really, really interesting things. And I think it's time for the public to have a greater awareness of the incredible work that they're doing. They're in the lab and it's my job to hopefully get their stories out of the lab.
So I've got to ask then, what inspired you to create I Am Human? I've got a feeling there must be a story behind your own inspiration too.
Well, a few years ago, I saw that series like Black Mirror and Westworld were becoming huge hits, and I too am a fan. I love the exploring the dark side of all of this technology. Just because I'm so interested in the subject matter, I realized there is a sci-fi story that begs to be told that already exists, and it's here. It's in reality. It's not fictionalized.